Hey everyone, welcome to another Angry Artist podcast. Now, I wanted to talk about today something that a lot of people really overhype. In fact, this is something that I feel like shouldn't really exist when it comes to professional art. And it's the idea of artist block. For those who don't really know, artist block is basically a fancy term artists use when they don't feel like drawing and they seem to lack any motivation or inspiration and nothing seems to come out properly. I will try to dispel why I think it's such a problem and what you can do to help yourself when you feel like you have that artist block, quote unquote. So why do I really dismiss the idea of artist block? It's quite simple, really. It's because your mind is playing tricks on you. And it could do so in several ways. So I really want to list down what people tend to have when they say they have an artist block. So number one would be simply you don't feel like drawing. Now, I've done art seriously for over a decade, and I can tell you that despite the fact that I've become a professional, yes, there are days where I don't feel like drawing. This is being human. Without going R-rated, there is literally nothing in this world that you can possibly do non-stop and just not take breaks. And yes, it's okay to take breaks. It's not an artist block. It's simply you being human and you need to vary your activities. No one will blame you if you decide you want to take a walk or you want to hang out with friends. Nobody is crazy enough to just draw all the time whenever you want to. Let's move on to the next point. It's the idea of inspiration. Maybe you do want to draw. You want to put pencil on paper and do something, but you seem to lack inspiration. Now, there are a couple of ways I can cut this, but both ways will probably resolve this pretty handily. First of all, we can go back to the first point. Sometimes you just need a break, and that could even just be walking outside and really take in life, and maybe that'll inspire you. When you are trying to draw for yourself, chances are you won't have a trillion ideas in your head at the same time. Now, this is different when you're trying to do things professionally because clients will tell you what you need to draw and you don't need to really worry about thinking of ideas, and that makes it a lot easier. It's very important when you're doing it for a job that you have to do it without being inspired. You just have to do it. So train yourself to, even if you don't have inspiration, just try to draw something more technical. And that goes into the second point. Just draw even if you have run out of great ideas. Not everything has to be a masterpiece. Not everything Orson Welles did is Citizen Kane. As long as you keep doing it, you will eventually stumble upon more inspiration. The worst thing you can have is to have a blank canvas because it doesn't really stimulate your mind. So this goes into my third point of why some people might have artist block. It's really the idea that, hey, I'm not drawing properly, or things aren't just coming out technically right. And that's okay. It's not a big deal. Again, don't expect everything to be a masterpiece. What I notice with a lot of young artists is they start drawing and then they realize their first drawings of the day do not look right and therefore they feel like it's not their day. Let's not think that harshly of yourself. Everybody needs warm-ups no matter what level of skill you are at. There's a reason why when you exercise, for instance, that people will they will suggest to you to warm up and do some cardio, for instance, just to warm up your body. It's the same thing as your mind, and when it comes to art. Don't be discouraged by the first drawings of your day. Don't worry, you are not losing your skill, you are not getting worse. At times, you just need to warm up. You are not a robot. Have a positive outlook in the stuff that you produce. This is especially important when you are professional. When you are doing your job, you are hired for a reason. People are not going to criticize you if you do one or two bad drawings as long as you pick up yourself and keep doing more. Nobody is perfect, and again, I repeat this multiple times that you do not have to expect yourself to do masterpieces every single time. What I tend to do when I feel like I can't get anything working is I simply draw something very technical, something like anatomy. You can look through an anatomy book and just start studying that. You don't have to have some original idea all the time, just practice. Always practice and see it as practice. When you relieve yourself of that standard, it solves 99% of artist block. You always have to draw, and that's part of being better at this. I draw at least 8 hours a day, and not every second of stuff that I do is amazing. It's gonna have some stagnant times. But as long as you keep going, eventually you draw enough that you've experienced everything. And that's where it's important. You have to draw enough that you kind of become desensitized to whatever happens. And it just becomes another job. Now, of course, if you're doing this as a hobby, you can take more breaks and you have more luxury when it comes to that. But either way, no matter what skill level or what purpose you have for art, don't strain yourself. Last but not least, there is another one that is less common, but I've seen it. And sometimes it's triggered by myself. And it's the idea that somebody told you your drawing is bad and you don't feel like going on. Now, this goes into inspiration as well. Sometimes you feel inspired when you are thinking positive, and sometimes you aren't when you are thinking negative. Now, this is a little deeper, and it's coming down to the individual artist. But I feel no matter what skill level you're aiming to be at, you have to have a thick skin, especially when you are showing this online. Now, we are human. We are always going to be affected by others' words, but let's try to minimize it. Minimize the effect of anything that is overly negative, and try to find self-motivation no matter how you achieve it, without having to rely on other people. If your entire purpose to do art is relying on exterior factors, inevitably you will face stagnant times. This is why it's very important to really ask yourself, what do you do when it comes to art? And why do you do art? All the professionals in this world will not be affected no matter what people say to their faces. For me personally, I've been told no many times when it comes to my art. People don't pay me, people say bad things about my art online, etc., etc. But you have to shut those off, and eventually it becomes, again, desensitized. Don't let other people take away the love of your art. And don't mistake every critique as something overly negative. In fact, the way I like to do things is, if somebody says something mean to me, I really want to prove them wrong. Oh, and one more point. If you do art professionally, anyways, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.